In this video I will talk about trees that are deadly to stand with, trees with poisonous thorns and trees whose fruits explode. These are the most dangerous trees and plants on the planet. The manzanella tree. It is called the most dangerous tree on the planet, which is why the manzanella tree was listed in the Guinness Book of World Records. Although, at first glance, it looks absolutely harmless, but next to this tree, there are often special warning signs that say that the trunk, leaves and fruits of this plant are deadly. Not only should it not be touched, but even being near it can be tragic. Just as one small prick of the fruit of the manzanella tree can cost a life. So why is this seemingly unremarkable plant so dangerous? The manzanella tree is called that for a reason. In Spanish it means the little apple of death. The reason is simple: first, the fruits do visually resemble apples, and second, these same fruits are deadly, but the manzanella tree became so famous not because of the fruit alone. The poison, which looks like white sap and is filled with dangerous toxins, is not only released by the fruit, the trunk, branches, and leaves of the manzanella tree are covered with this sap. That's why it's quite dangerous to even be near it. And first of all when it rains, because together with the drops the poison will simply pour on you. To give you an idea of how terrible the poison of the manzanella tree is, it is enough to know that its contact with human eyes leads to blindness. This was written about by travelers who explored South America several hundred years ago. Just the warm areas of South and North America close to the ocean are the regions where the manzanella tree grows. As a rule, it can be found near beaches. This is why the second name of this tree is the beach apple. Interestingly, even if you are not near this tree, it can cause you serious harm. If it suddenly burns, the smoke from it will also be poisonous. Interestingly, despite the dangers of manzanella wood, it has been used for centuries for the production of wood and the subsequent manufacture of furniture. To avoid dangerous contact with poisonous parts, the tree is first burned at the base, and only then is it carefully cut down. Then it is left to dry in the sun for a long time to dry out all the poisonous sap. Of course, the furniture of this material is not very cheap, but the owners can boast of a unique piece of interior. Walking trees. Yes, you heard right. Although we all know that trees stand still, swaying in the wind at most, there are some that actually walk. That's why they were also nicknamed the walking palm trees. This miracle grows in South America and looks really scary. Just imagine that these legs can move. They are thought to be the ones that help the plant go from one place to another, such as moving from a shady area to a sunny one, or just going somewhere. It is unlikely that you would want to stumble upon this plant. Such a phenomenon is possible because of the unusual root system of the walking palm. While most trees have one trunk, the palm has many smaller roots. All these amazing abilities of the walking palm are actively told to tourists by guides in the rainforests of South America. Of course, all this strikes people's imagination. However, everything I have just told you, as it turns out, is part of one big myth that has been circulating around the internet for a long time. A professor from the University of Costa Rica conducted a special study on walking palm trees back in the mid-noughties. As a result of this study, it was proven that a walking palm cannot walk. Its roots don't really move, they may gradually die off on one side and the other, but the trunk itself stands in the same place, not moving anywhere for years or decades. So if you hear any more stories about trees walking, you know it's fiction. All trees, without exception, stand still. The only tree that walks is Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy. Like it if you like little Groot. Heracleum. Everyone has probably heard the name of this plant, and many have even met it. It is such a familiar weed that not everyone is aware of its deadly danger. Not even the scientists who discovered it realized it. By the way, it happened not so long ago. In the 40s of the 20th century, Heracleum was discovered and described in detail. It actively grew on the territory of the USSR and its closest eastern neighbors. At first Heracleum was planned to be used as cattle fodder, but it quickly became clear that this weed not only grows quickly and destroys nearby plants, but is also deadly to animals and humans. What makes Heracleum so dangerous? The sap of the plant contains a special liquid that reacts to sunlight, and this liquid, when it comes into contact with the skin, dramatically increases its sensitivity to ultraviolet light. And since encounters with Heracleum take place outdoors, this is the scenario: the dangerous sap of the plant gets on your skin, then the sunlight hits it and it can cause serious burns. The whole question here is how much of the juice got on the skin. If the amount is large, it can lead to death. If Heracleum sap gets into the eyes, it can cause blindness. To make matters worse, Heracleum grows to a gigantic size. The plant can reach several meters, which means that if you accidentally run into a thicket of Heracleum, there is a great risk of not coming out alive. Unfortunately, such tragic accidents often happen to animals. You have probably already realized that the best precaution is to never touch Heracleum. If it does happen, hide the spot where the juice hit, so that the sunlight does not get there, and then rinse. To prevent this, it's best to keep the spot under your clothes for a few more days. The best thing to do is to visit a doctor who will assess the situation and be able to provide expert help. By the way, write in the comments if you have encountered Heracleum in real life, how it happened and how often. Dendrochnide moroids. Everyone knows what nettles look like and sting, but now imagine that nettles grow to several meters and their leaves contain toxins that can lead to human death. This is Dendrochnide moroids. Its leaves are covered with tiny poisonous hairs that sting at the slightest touch. If hairs get stuck in your skin, they can continue to cause severe pain for months or even years. This is despite the fact that Dendrochnide moroids looks like an ordinary, unremarkable bush. People and many animals, such as dogs and horses, have died after contact with Dendrochnide moroids. However, there are several species of birds that are immune to the bites of this plant and, moreover, they can feed on it. Unlike Heracleum, Dendrochnide moroids does not grow on the territory of the former Soviet republics. Its main habitat is Australia and New Zealand. One of the park guards in Australia who was struck by Dendrochnide moroids on his torso and face described in detail how he felt. He said the pain was almost unbearable for several days, making it impossible to sleep or work. The severe pain continued for several weeks. For several years, the painful sensation recurred every time the person took a shower. Bunya bunya. This tree is somewhat similar to a pine tree and contains no deadly poison or bloody resin. Nevertheless, it is possible to die just by standing under this tree. It is enough to see the cones that grow on this tree once and everything becomes clear. On the internet there are many pictures of a man holding a banyan cone, and this cone is about the size of 2 heads. Its weight can reach up to 6 kilograms. And what happens to the cones from time to time? That's right, they fall. Of course, if a fruit of that size and weight falls on your head, there's not much chance of survival. The seeds contained in these cones are twice the size of a large coin. The wood of this tree is considered to be of very high quality and is used to make furniture. Bunya used to grow in South America and Europe, but today the tree can only be found in Australia. Dynamite tree. This name is not given to this tree by accident. It contains several dangers at once. First of all, there are noticeable thorns all over the trunk of the tree, which already gives it an intimidating appearance, but this is only the beginning. It is called a dynamite tree because the fruits at a certain stage of ripening can explode, the seeds begin to scatter at a gigantic speed. For a tree, this is good, so it breeds, but for a person, such an explosion of the fruit can lead to very serious injuries. But if you thought that was the end of the dangers of the dynamite tree, you were wrong. On top of that, it also secretes poisonous sap. This tree grows mainly in the forests of Amazonia and South America. Thanks to all these dangers, especially the spiky trunk, no monkeys climb the dynamite tree, although there are plenty of monkeys in this region. Dragon tree. This tree cannot cause you any physical harm, perhaps only moral harm. After all, from the trunk of this tree flows a liquid that looks like blood. We are used to the fact that the resin of trees is usually a light yellow shade, and sometimes even colorless. But there are several species of trees around the world whose resin is blood red in color. One striking example is the dragon tree. It grows mainly on the island of Socotra in the Arabian Sea. According to legend, once upon a time a dragon lived on this island and devoured elephants and drank their blood. But one day one of the elephants managed to defeat the dragon and crushed him. The dragon's blood soaked into the ground and bloody trees grew from the ground. Clearly, this is just a beautiful legend. In reality, despite its intimidating appearance, the tree's blood resin is often collected and used as a natural dye for cosmetics, including in medicine. Blue aconite. This plant looks beautiful and harmless, but in reality absolutely all parts of this plant, from the root to the very top, are deadly poisonous. In ancient times, people used it on arrowheads and as bait to kill wolves, so it is also called wolf's aconite. Despite the fact that aconite is a poisonous plant, some people grow it in their gardens, which may not end well. The last such case occurred in the year 2014 in Great Britain. A 33-year-old gardener allegedly died after touching and possibly eating the plant. However, even the mere touch of aconite is enough to cause vomiting, diarrhea and numbness. So gardeners should always use gloves when working with these plants. The suicide tree. As you can imagine, a simple tree is unlikely to be given such a name. These trees grow in parts of India and South Asia. The most dangerous part of them is the fruit, which looks like green apples. They contain dangerous toxins that can easily lead to human death. In the best-case scenario, a person will get vomiting, severe poisoning and other unpleasant consequences. Datura stramonium. The name of this plant in Russian does not bode well, however, in English this plant has a slightly different name, namely the devil's trumpet. This name quite correctly reflects all the bad consequences that can happen to you when you encounter these plants. The ancient Aztecs said that the trumpets of the devil make you mad and take away your life. Scientists confirm this information to be true. Datura stramonium contains a dangerous toxic substance in its leaves and seeds. The typical symptoms of poisoning by this plant have long been described. People experience confusion, nausea, paralysis, and more. In short, Datura stramonium is an extremely dangerous plant and should not be approached. It can be found in European countries and in Russia. So remember what this plant looks like and be careful. Agala tree. European travelers in the 18th century were among the first to learn of the great danger of this tree. As they were exploring Southeast Asia, the travelers began to cut down an unfamiliar tree. At this point, they were in for an unpleasant surprise. When I struck the trunk, poisonous sap began to come out in a sharp jet. This juice got on the skin and in the eyes. Some of the crew instantly developed blisters on their skin, and those who got the poison in their eyes went blind, fortunately temporarily. Of course, the travelers did not use this tree to make a fire, and they were right, because even the smoke from burning the agala tree contains poison and can cause harm. For the tree itself, the presence of poison in the bark is a defense mechanism that protects it from many types of animals and insects. The agalo tree still grows in Asia, in countries such as Cambodia, Vietnam, India, and others. Chilabuka. The name of this tree is not likely to tell you anything, except that the word chilabuka sounds rather funny. This tree is also called the vomit nut, and this immediately hints at its danger. The fruit of the chilabuka contains the famous poison, strychnine, or rather a substance that is then used to produce strychnine. This poison is actively used in poison for rats. It is impossible to find it in European countries. Chilabuka primarily grows in Southeast Asia and countries in Africa. Oleander. This is a very beautiful plant, which, among other things, is bred in gardens and even grown in room conditions. But you have to be very careful, because oleander is quite poisonous, and all parts of this shrub are poisonous at once. They contain toxins that can cause great problems in the heart and central nervous system. Sometimes oleander poison can even lead to cardiac arrest. This is why it is not recommended to plant oleander in places where children or animals can walk, because they may not be aware of the deadly dangers of the plant in the first place. Also, oleander grows in some countries of the former Soviet Union and in Europe with a warmer climate. Actaea pachypeda. Because the berries of this plant resemble the eyes of toy dolls, it is also called doll's eyes. However, these very eyes are incredibly dangerous, and to approach them, let alone touch them, in any case, is not worth it. All parts of this plant are poisonous and dangerous to humans. The most dangerous are those doll's eyes. The poison they contain can lead to cardiac arrest and, consequently, death. Surprisingly, there are some species of birds that eat these fruits calmly and feel perfectly fine, because by nature they are immune to the dangerous toxins of this plant. Don't forget to like this video if it was interesting for you, as well as subscribe to the channel. Click on the bell to always be aware of new videos and, of course, leave your comments under this video.